Baptiste. Okay, dude, it's a great video. Listen up, dude. I got some problems with this hero Baptiste, okay? I got a lot of problems with a lot of heroes. But yesterday when I was playing Overwatch, I queued into some quick play with a friend. I was like, dude, I'm gonna enjoy myself some good old quick play. And in that quick play lobby, I quickly realized that I was not going to have a good time. Simply because they picked the Baptiste hero. Now let me explain why. If I played Genji, we have this weird scenario where it's kind of my job to engage in a duel with this hero. The Baptiste hero, he's obviously a support hero, and I should have a great advantage in fighting said hero, right? He's a support hero, I'm a DPS flank heavy hero, I should pretty easily win that engagement. However, it quickly became apparent that I was losing essentially every time I ever went for him, and I was thinking, whoa, that's a little weird that that's the case. So I broke down why. Well, I would dive him. Let's say I snuck up behind him and started right-clicking him. He would then turn around and start shooting me back. And then once his HP got to, say, I don't know, 40, where he was just outside of melee range, and I wanted to go for another right-click, he would throw his immortality field down, instantly bursting him to, I believe it to be like 50 health or something. I forget exactly what the number is, but I think you get 25% of your health back, or like your health, the minimum HP you can have is 25% of your max HP when immortality. That could be wrong, but I think that's the case. Anyway, he puts down his immortality field, and he continues fighting me. That's a 200 HP immortality field. I have to break that, otherwise I'm never going to kill him. So, I take my attention away from him, and instead I start to shoot his immortality field. In that time, his other support healed him. Okay, well, he's back to full HP, but, like, I've only taken about 50 damage. There's a chance I can probably still win this duel. So, I continue to fight him. I use my deflect, I burst one full burst back into him, that's a decent chunk of damage. I land another right click, I melee because I think he's low enough HP. He's a little too high, he's about 45, he's left with about 15 health. At that point, he presses regenerative burst, instantly giving himself 100 HP, and 50 HP over the course of a certain amount of seconds. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, in this really small period of time, I have now gone through his entire health bar, an entire immortality field health bar, his entire health bar, and a regenerative burst, and now he's back to full HP. So then I continue to duel him. I use my dash on him because I'm thinking he's got no more utility, there's nothing he can do. I'm right-clicking him, and then he exo boots into the sky. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I can just wait for him to drop back down. Like, I'm Genji. I don't really have the burst at this range where he's up in the air like that for me to actually kill him. So I'm just going to wait for him to fall. I'm going to shoot a little right click, but I'm going to basically just wait until he comes back down. In that time where he jumped into the air, the Ana shot him twice, giving him 140 HP, bringing him back to around 170 health. Okay, that's annoying. So I have no cooldowns anymore. He has no cooldowns anymore, and we continue fighting. Then, eventually, he kills me. He kills me, fair and square, okay? But I just want you to know, during this entire engagement, I did 200 HP to him, like around 200 damage to him. 200 for the immortality, that's 400. Then I did 200 again, that's 600. Then he had regenerative burst. Then I did all that, and that's 800. And then his support healed him, and then I did 200 more. I did 1,000 damage to one support, give or take, like 20 or 30. Let's say I did closer to 900, right? I did about 900 damage to one squishy support hero. And he survived. And all he had to do to me was land 3 or 4 left-click bursts. And if he landed them, I was dead. How this hero is this overpowered, and we're not touching him, is insane. I genuinely believe that Baptiste, in his current state, is the most broken hero currently in the game. And I complain about things like Kiriko, Weaver Grip, and like shit like that, and Orisa and Bastion, right? Those heroes are ludicrous, but they are nothing compared to Baptiste, whose damage rivals the majority of the DPSs, and in a lot of cases is superior to that of the DPS class. Not only that, he has massive burst AoE healing that are extremely easy to land, and they're huge as well. Plus, he has regenerative burst, obviously, which instantly heals him 100 HP, and 50 over 5 seconds, I think. And it will burst his teammates and heal them over time as well. And he has immortality field, and he has exo boots. This kit is so unbelievably overloaded that I think playing flank heroes, things like Tracer and Genji, other than Sombra, are literally completely dead when this hero is getting played. I do not understand how in any scenario you are ever supposed to effectively kill this person on your own. How is a support hero, the heroes that are deliberately meant to be slightly more vulnerable, so they have to rely on their team, because obviously they're the ones who heal, it wouldn't make much sense for them to be able to heal, duel, survive, have mobility, immortalities, movement manipulations, things like that. That would make no sense. But in the current state of Overwatch 2, that is the case. Now, I'm going to do something I don't usually do for these kind of videos. I want to actually suggest some nerfs to this hero. Now, I don't have the exact numbers, and I could pull them up, but I'm too lazy for that, and I'm too annoyed. So, instead, we're going to do some general tweaks. Now, I'm not going to say any specific numbers, because I think it would be unfair for me to assume numbers when I don't know them for concrete. So, essentially, the main problems with Baptiste is that his kit is generally overloaded. First of all, he would need an entire rework. If we could not rework him, and we could only apply like number changes, like buffs and nerfs, like the amount of healing or damage he does, then fixing him would become almost impossible. However, if we were able to achieve a full rework where the character is completely changed, then fixing him would obviously be no problem at all, because he is ludicrously overpowered. Let's start with saying that we cannot rework him, and we can only change his numbers. Well, first of all, Immortality Field has way too much HP and way too much uptime. It should have a max uptime of maybe 4 seconds, so if it's down longer than that, it automatically breaks, and it should lower its HP to around 125 or 150. Not an enormous change, but my reason for not completely butchering the ability is I plan on changing other aspects of his kit as well, and I don't think it would be fair to completely delete his main premise, even if it is extremely overpowered, just because, obviously, of how strong it is, because I'm going to be touching other parts of his kit as well. Second of all, his damage is way, way too high. Just absurd. There's no reason that a support hero should be able to, like, relatively easily out DPS heroes, and easily at that, because he's also a hit scan. So you would have to tank his damage numbers. I couldn't tell you exactly what they are, but I'd say a 10 or 15% damage decrease would be a pretty good spot for him, where he's still capable of dueling if he's landing his shots, but not so much to the point where he's essentially just a DPS hero in the backline. Next, I think you should reduce the range, or like the size of his healing projectile. I think it's too large. Well, there's two options. You either reduce the size of the AoE of the healing, so it's more difficult and you can't burst an entire team, or you lower its number. I think it would be better to decrease the AoE, because it's the AoE that's the problem, and not necessarily the actual amount of healing that's happening. Because I think if you just lowered the number, it would force him to be healing more, which I don't necessarily think he should be doing. I think he should just be struggling more to land those giant heals, because currently, he's probably the easiest support in the game to heal with, outside of things that do it automatically, like, you know, Inspire. Like, we all know how I feel about that. So yeah, I would suggest an AoE healing nerf. Regenerative Burst, I think, could stay the same, with maybe some slight changes. If we were going to change it, it would probably be that the heal over time was lowered, or the burst was lowered. You could even do it so the burst was, say, only 50 HP, but the heal over time was greater. I think that would be a better option for it. You get the slight survivability of the burst, plus the reward of running away with the heal over time. If you're getting hunted, I think that is a much better place for a support to be, instead of just a giant burst, because again, it's burst that's the problem. And his actual boots should be either on a cooldown or removed from the game. I don't think it's fair that there is a hero in the game like Baptiste where he has no cooldown and can just infinitely jump in the air like that. However, I will say, if the other parts of his kit were nerfed strongly, then I think he would be able to keep it. Similarly to the fact that Lucio has wall ride, and that's not a cooldown, so why would Baptiste Exo Boots be a cooldown? I think Baptiste's Exo Boots should be a cooldown because of all the other parts of his kit are way too strong. The reason Lucio can wall ride all the time and doesn't have a cooldown is because that's basically all he can do. But Baptiste can do everything. He has a hit scan gun, massive AoE projectile healing, burst, immortality field, exo boots, like ludicrously overpowered. I think amplification matrix is totally fine. The window, I think it's okay. I think it's relatively hard to use if you don't know what you're doing. And I think it would be fine to leave that the same. So, and I think that's genuinely how I would fix Baptiste without reworking him. So the general premise of Baptiste is, I'm okay with how powerful he is if he's harder to use. But because he's so easy to use, they need to nerf him. So they have two options. They either nerf the hero, or they make him harder to play. They're not going to make him harder to play, so they have to nerf him. But I don't think they're going to nerf him either, because support players will cry and say that Bap is a bad hero, even though he's probably the strongest hero in the entire game currently. And I don't even think things like Bastion or Orisa or Zarya even come remotely close to Baptiste's level of power, simply because his kit is so overloaded, and not only is his kit overloaded, it also has a ton of numbers applied to it as well, but the stats are extremely high for no reason. So obviously some of my changes I suggested were kind of off the dome, and some of them could be great, some of them could be bad. I think if I sat down and really thought about it for longer, I could come up with a better plan, but generally speaking, I think blanket nerfs to the majority of his kit would be fine. And even then, you could leave his damage completely the same if you gave him less survivability. The problem is you mix those things together. You can't have insane survivability on top of extremely high damage, because that makes him the best duelist in the game. There's no hero in the game that has the survivability levels of Baptiste and the dueling potential of Baptiste outside of maybe Zarya. And even then, that's a tank hero, and she can't heal people. And Baptiste can heal people on top of that, as well as make them invincible and things like that, which is just kind of insanely overpowered in my opinion, and I think it should be removed from the game. Anyway, that was me mauling with Baptiste for 12 and a half minutes, and I love you. This hero is broken as shit, and I'm going to keep complaining about him until they fix him. Mwah. Oh, by the way, if you die to a Bap player, it's not your fault. I don't care who you are. It's never your fault if you die to Bap. Mwah. Okay, goodbye. Fuck you all. Bye.